And then, we stayed in touch, and those DMs turned into texts, and those texts turned into phone calls. And we just kind of stayed in touch around things that we were working on at the time. And one thing led to another, and we ended up building the company together. So it wasn't like I had this goal from day one that I was seeking a mentor and these were the guys. It was just a very natural, patient evolution of that.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Stephen Schneider. Stephen is co-founder and CEO of Trio SEO, an agency that helps B2B brands design and implement ROI-focused SEO strategies. Before Trio SEO, he co-owned a portfolio of 40 blogs, managed 400 articles monthly, and scaled to 7 figures via SEO. No paid ads, social media, or other strategies. Today, Trio SEO creates content that converts browsers into buyers. Their team manages everything. The process is 100% hands-off for founders and CMOs. Congrats on your success with Trio SEO, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Hi, thanks, Carl. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So tell me more about the power of betting on yourself in entrepreneurship, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're starting companies, there's obviously a lot of doubt and imposter syndrome and kind of things that people get in their own way when it comes to their own way of viewing themselves and stuff. So tell us more about the power of betting on yourself in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's something that I think I've always been a pretty big fan of. I got a lot of positive feedback from doing that in college when I was building my first company. And I think that there's something to be said around the amount of effort that you can put in entrepreneurship and how it's directly related to the results, essentially, that you can see tangibly. So I think that most times, obviously, there's always going to be doubt and imposter syndrome. That's never going to fade, or at least it's always going to be there to some degree. And that's just because we're human. That's fair. But I think at the end of the day, you really have to realize that if you trust the process and trust yourself and are willing to put in the hours to continuously get better, there is usually a light at the end of the tunnel, and usually just starts with taking a big bet on yourself.
Yeah, so that's great advice. What was your experience like? What did you go through that helped you realize this for yourself?
Yeah, so I remember back when I was learning SEO, and my mentor back then and good friend still nowadays, he was showing me just what it was and how he was already very successful in college, making all this money. And to me, it felt like, he was making millions of dollars while I was trying to figure out what to even do with my life in college. And I just realized that, if he can do this, I can do this. And I think that I just quickly became obsessed with trying to achieve something similar. And, it's kind of like the famous quote. It's always like, who do you compare yourself to is usually where you're going to strive and get to. And so, I always wanted to be someone and kind of get to that level. And then I saw that my good friend, and not like even somebody that was an internet guru by any means, was achieving the success that I always dreamt about. And I was like, well, if he's doing it, it's within reach. And so I just kind of quickly realized that if I wanted something, I had to be willing to put into work. And still, even to this day, it's a very kind of fresh reminder that if you want to do something amazing, you have to do something amazing. As weird and cliche as that sounds, and redundant as it sounds, it's just always kind of stuck in the back of my mind.
And it also sounds like you said he was a mentor for you, so it wasn't like you were trying to figure it all out yourself. You kind of had a roadmap or had some guidance from him that helped you find your path. Is that right?
Definitely so. Yep.
So when it comes to mentors, what are some of the other mentors you've had that helped you along your journey? Because it sounds like you've done this multiple times with it, and you have a different mentor each time, or how did you find your support network that way?
Yeah, I've just been very fortunate to make friends that turn into business partners, and those business partners and friends obviously become mentors as well. So like even with Trio, the current business and agency that we have nowadays, the partners and co-founders that I accidentally met through LinkedIn small talk and networking became some of my greatest mentors. I mean, they had just come off of exiting a very successful company, and they had already gone through a much larger scaled business than I had even tried to achieve. I mean, they had 10x'd whatever I had done in the past. And so be able to come in and have a very casual dynamic that was easygoing and friendly and conversational and built with laughter, but also coupled with support and expertise and a guiding rope along the way, was a very, very strong and powerful thing. But I think that obviously it's much easier said than done looking back, but I think it really does take, being able to recognize when those opportunities are in front of us and then being able to act on them. And that's kind of where it goes back into betting on yourself. It's like, okay, we're all presented with this stuff, but are you actually going to move forward with it and invest the energy to see it through?
So you met these business partners of yours just through LinkedIn, and how did you initially connect with them? What were kind of the steps in that building that relationship? Because I'd imagine a lot of people see people online, especially on LinkedIn, where they're working at a company or have had the experience that would make them a good mentor for someone. But then how'd you reach out? What was that process like for you that other people might be able to replicate that with potential mentors that they'd love to start a relationship with?
Yeah, I think the biggest pitfall that I see typically is that people go into it looking for a mentor. And I think that's the completely wrong way to do it. Like if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Will you be my mentor?" Like, sorry, I don't have time. Like that's gonna be my first reaction, is because I know how much energy that's probably going to take. But I think that many of my friends, I still have mentor. Like I am a mentor to some people in my friend group, I would say. And that's just because we talk and I enjoy talking to them, and they'll bounce ideas off me and I have opportunities that I can bounce off them. And it becomes a more collaborative dynamic. And that's how it stemmed when I first started talking to my partners. It was a very like casual friendship. I messaged them just to have a small talk networking conversation with zero incentives behind it. And then, we stayed in touch, and those DMs turned into texts, and those texts turned into phone calls. And we just kind of stayed in touch around things that we were working on at the time. And one thing led to another, and we ended up building the company together. So it wasn't like I had this goal from day one that I was seeking a mentor and these were the guys. It was just a very natural, patient evolution of that.
I think that's a brilliant piece of information, brilliant insight, because like you said, there's when you approach or get approached by someone saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a mentor," it's very transactional in that sort of outreach. And it's like you said, you immediately think of, oh, that's going to take a lot of time and energy. And you're not, the person who's asking is not coming from a place of, here's what I can offer to this relationship. It's, I want something from you. And obviously people that have reached the level of success like your partners have before when you met them, there's probably other people or other things that are vying for their time and attention. So your approach of just starting conversations, or basically adding some value to those initial interactions and making it a real relationship on a personal level first, allowed for things to mature naturally to eventually become business partners and mentors. And I think it's that willingness to invest in the personal relationships and take the time and add value to it that makes it such a successful mentorship or partnership for you. And I think a lot of people, when they're initially reaching out to people online, especially, they're not thinking about the value they can bring to the relationship, or just making it a relationship on a a personal level, they're just thinking about that. Well, what do I need for my business or for my career or whatever off the get go, and that's comes across very differently when you start that outreach, and it is very likely to get shot down because people can see those coming a mile away.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even back then when I first met them, I had zero intention of asking for anything. That to look now and see what we've built together and what we are still building together, it's a very serendipitous relationship to some degree because, it was, like I said, I reached out to Connor, my partner, just because he was a active SEO on LinkedIn and I was starting to create content at that time. And I think I commented on one of his posts and I said, I have this idea. Like I commented on one of his posts and was like, yeah, this is a really interesting take. It's kind of similar to XYZ. If you ever want to do a collab on a post together, let me know. And then he DM'd me and he always jokes that he took forever to get back to me after he DM'd me. And it was like months went by and I didn't hear from him. But I also didn't bug him. I just was like, oh, he's probably busy. Like we all have busy stuff going on in our life. And, he reached out to me later and was like, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you didn't bug me. And the fact that you were patient, like really spoke a lot around your goals and what you're doing, and that you're not trying to make this a transactional thing. He's like, I just want you to know, like, I really appreciated that. And that kind of was the kickstart or the catalyst for a future relationship, and that we were able to talk and have him know that like I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. And there wasn't like this fangirl like mentality to me talking to him essentially. And it wasn't until I quit my job and I was exploring consulting again that I reached out to him and I said, hey, just want you to know that I left my job. I'm going back to entrepreneurship. And if you and Nate, who's our other partner, I said, if you guys have any bandwidth and you're looking for something new, I feel like we could do something really great together. And he came back to me and said, no, we're not looking to explore ideas, but if you have an idea that is interesting, like we'll entertain it. And if there's something there, we can kind of see where it leads. And even then, like it wasn't like I was, oh, well, let's do this. It was just a very like, okay, cool. And that was it. And that was like 2 months went by. And then we were texting again. And I had completely forgotten about that conversation. And I said to him, why don't you have an SEO agency in your guys' business portfolio? It makes complete sense for the brand. It makes sense for who you guys are. And he kind of later told me that he's like, oh no, we have it all mapped out. We have the playbook. We know what we do. We just don't have an operator. And so I pitched myself and I said, I can run this if you guys can fill in the gaps. And that was how it started. So that was like probably 8 or 9 months later after we had originally met. So it was just like this very drawn out, slow, casual process that finally led to something accidentally.
Yeah, I think there's not just on the personal level, but I think businesses do this too, is that they try to accelerate the trust building process faster than people actually naturally build trust, which is a problem for marketing and sales. But it also, when it comes to finding these mentors or finding business partners and stuff, it's going to take some time, like 8-9 months of like building that relationship in a natural way before someone's going to be willing to entertain forming a business with you or bringing you on for an opportunity like that, which requires such a deep level of trust. And so it's something that when people are making that initial outreach, understanding the realistic timeline and planning for and expecting it to and being willing to invest the time into building those relationships in a way that is on the more natural time frame to how our brains actually build trust is important, because people are so used to getting this instant gratification and instant results, and that's just not how our brains work and not how we build relationships. And so instead of like meeting someone on a first date and asking them to marry you right away, like you gotta build that relationship over time first. And so that same thing applies to kind of mentorships or partnerships like this. And it's funny how when you use the example of like proposing on a first date, people all say that's crazy, but then they basically do the same thing. Be my mentor. It's like, we just met. Like, I don't know you at all. Why would I like agree to be a mentor? Like, that's almost as equally as crazy. But there's this cognitive dissonance between when it's done in a quote unquote professional setting. People don't necessarily realize how crazy a request that is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other interesting part is that like when it comes to people who, from my experience, people who are looking for mentors feel like mentors have this magic solution to their problems, where from my experience, a mentor has never directly solved a problem. They've just accidentally shown me stuff that I needed at a time that I didn't think I needed. It was a very harmonious flow of the universe to find that I'm doing this thing and now I'm learning this thing. And this person who I'm talking with as a friend happens to have a skill set that is 10 years beyond my skill set. And they can help me find mistakes that I would have gone down my path myself because they've done those mistakes. And they're like, yeah, don't do it this way. Do it this way instead. And I think that that is almost to some degree what the benefit of a mentor is. And people have come to me like, hey, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, what are you looking to get out of this? And they almost stumble over their words because they don't know what they want out of it. And I think that people who are seeking a mentor expect it to be this like a magic 8-ball solution when it should be more of a friendship and a dynamic of here's how to go about life if we're on the same journey together. It's just that I'm a couple of steps ahead of you and I can tell you what not to do because I've already been there.
Yeah, I think again, that's a great insight, and it's funny because I'm have a similar relationship with a guy that I met like through LinkedIn. Was going to engage with his content. We've been talking regularly, and he's giving me some great advice on something he went through himself before, and so it helped me with what I've been trying to do now. But it wasn't like I started the relationship looking for that. It was just I wanted to just connect with this guy and build a relationship and add value to it and see what came of it. But it was one of those, as I described what we talked about to other people, I realized how do I refer to this guy? I guess it's kind of like a mentor, but it wasn't like I want this guy to be my mentor. And we started talking. It was like I want to just connect and I wanted to build a real relationship, and it wasn't with mentorship in mind. It was just this seems like a cool connection to make, and I know it's someone I want to support, and so I think as you've been describing, I'm like, oh, that makes sense of how that formed so naturally. And I think it's something that, again, it's that people come from a transactional, like they have a sense that they want to get something, but then they don't really know what that is. They can't articulate it well. And so their outreach is so awkward and fumbly that it's off-putting because that's not how you actually find mentors. And instead of coming from well, here's what I need mindset, it should be from how do I connect with people? How do I add value to these relationships? What can I do to, like you said, you started by commenting on people's posts and adding value to the conversation and suggesting like cross-promotional stuff, but all things where it was you giving something to them as well as getting something back. It was a two-way thing, like any good relationship. And so I think people, especially entrepreneurs that have so much that they don't know, they don't even know, that like you said, they don't, you're not even knowing like what you necessarily need right now. But if you just start building relationships with people naturally and offer some value and connect, then you'll gain all these insights. You're like, I didn't even know I was looking for this. That's exactly what I needed at this point. Holy crap. Thank you. Those will start happening, and you'll get what you need that you didn't even know you needed from these now mentors, but you got them to be mentors by just building relationships like a human being, not as like I need a solution to my specific problem. I'm just going to push the mentor button and get a solution.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, that's the best way to look at it. And it's always the, I think people who are in that position looking for a mentor, they always come from a good place of heart because they're looking up to you. They think that you can help them get to where they want to go. But I think that mentorship is also a very broad term that gets thrown around a lot, especially in business. And, everyone always says, you need a mentor, like this is the best way to succeed. And I remember hearing that a lot when I was in college and thinking, wow, I have to find a mentor because everyone says that you need a mentor to be successful. And I was thinking, okay, well, this person's retired, and so they must be my mentor. Or this person's retired and they could be my mentor. And it was always this like persona that I had built up in my head around somebody who was at the tail end of their career and had done XYZ and achieved PDQ to some degree. And lo and behold, my mentor was a year younger than I was and sitting right next to me in class. And I had no idea until one day he spoke up and told me, hey, this is what I do on the side. I build websites using this thing called SEO, and I'm making 10 to 15 grand a month for my college dorm doing that. And my jaw just dropped. And I was like, I'm going to learn everything that you have to offer me, and I will bug the hell out of you until you've taught me everything. And that was just how it figured it out. Like, it was just like this eerie day I'll never forget where he told me this thing and I just got chills. And I was like, this is the thing. Like, I will do whatever I have to do to learn this thing from you. And like, you have no choice but to teach me this thing. And that was just how it started.
Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Stephen. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Stephen, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.